And so then you need to have the person who actually puts it into humans and makes it work. And so this is the three parts of the puzzle that you have to do. You have to have the scientist to have the idea and to develop the technology. You have to have the clinician to help get it through animal trials and everything else. But then finally you have to have the person who puts it in the eye and makes it work. And without this, we would have never managed to get this lens going forward. Because once you start putting it in and testing it, then all the problems show up. And as a scientist, this is fun, because a problem appears, we have to go back and develop new science. And that's great fun. Of course, the business people hate that because it takes time and everything else. But it's really been good. And so this is the three parts of the team that makes this all work. And so this is Dr. Chayet, who's adjusting a lens. And so then how do you put on the pattern? Well, the pattern of light that we put on is done using the same technology that's used for the projection here. And so essentially a projector, a modern projector, is essentially a chip, and it has little mirrors on it which flicker back and forth. And by controlling the flicker of those, you can change the pattern of light that's coming off of those. And so the same thing that allows us to show writing on the screen allows us to make a pattern which we can then put on the lens and cause the change to take place. So it's pretty straightforward technology, and this then ends up in the kind of device which we showed before. And it works pretty well. What sort of timing is it? Well, this is sort of good science. Is that you irradiate and then you measure the time, and so it takes about 24 hours. So then the procedure then becomes one of implanting the lens, which is exactly the way they're implanted now, allowing the lens to settle, everything to heal. Takes about 2 weeks. And then at the end of 2 weeks, then there's a 1 to 2 minute treatment, which causes this polymerization and the chemical change to take place. Then I showed you on the last slide, it takes about 24 hours for this pink to move in where the blue is. So that's what causes the change. And so it takes about 24 hours then for this to take place. So after 24 hours, everything should be in good shape. So if everything works properly, the patient gets the IOL, comes back 2 weeks later, gets an eye exam. Now if he has a problem, he gets sent off to get spectacles. Now he sits down with this, sits in front of a machine, light shines in his eyes for a minute or two. The next day he wakes up and he has 20/20 vision, if everything works right. And then he goes back in and gets locked in, and everything is done, okay? So that's another minute and a half to treatment, okay? So how well does it work? Here's some early work from the Chayet clinic. This is what really let us know we were on the way. The blue was the target, and the yellow is what was achieved, and this was amazingly good. We showed this to some of our medical people, and they were astounded because they didn't think we would ever be able to get this kind of control. It's now being sold in Europe, and this shows now some results from Europe. So the line down the middle is what you want, and the red is what is achieved after the treatment, and the yellow triangles were those which yellow triangles were preoperative. And so these people all end up essentially with 20/20 vision, which is what you like to see, and the oops. And these are then the post-operative, and so over 95%. And so this is post-operation, and so this was before correction is the greenish, and then the red is after they've been corrected. And so over 99% are off by half a diopter, 95% are a quarter diopter. So this is now getting to the point where one can really start to correct these errors and problems associated with the associated surgery and lack of stuff. This shows another interesting thing, which is the red is the people before they started, and so they really couldn't see very well at all. And then 97% had 20/25, which is very good vision after the treatment, and 100% had 20/30, which is pretty decent. And the other thing is now there are now new ways of treating astigmatism, but you have to predict ahead of time. So with this lens, one can now tailor it to fit the situation, and so you can put on different patterns and correct astigmatism, so that's no longer an issue by putting on different shapes and different patterns, which allow you to make things as they go. Now the last question, which has kept coming up, is that, okay, you can give me 20/20 vision distance, but I still have to have glasses if I want to read. And that's just sort of standard for many situations. So can we develop a way of building a lens so we can give perfect distance vision and then be able to read? I mean, what this would be is you can drive along the road, you're seeing the oncoming traffic, you need to look down and read your map, and you don't have to put on glasses while you're doing that. And so there are a number of approaches to this. One that seems to be working well is to basically put a little dot in the middle of the eye of the right power. So this is called a customized reading zone. And this is moving along reasonably well. Just one case, which maybe will come in a moment. Here we go. So here was one patient who pre-adjustment had 20/40. Best corrected was 20/16. This person could correct up really well. After the adjustment, they had 20/16. This is distance vision, but near vision was pretty bad, 20/80. But by putting in this correcting zone, the distance was maintained, so it was 20/16, but close vision was 20/40, and we've done some better than that. That's good enough to read. And so the end result is a big improvement in the uncorrected near vision without changing anything on the distance. So now hopefully by being able to now use this chemistry that was developed for this simple idea, we'll be able to now make a lens that you can be assured that after surgery and after treatment, you will have very good distance vision as well as very good near vision. Okay? So, I think the lesson here is that one needs three parts of the puzzle, and we're now approaching many other medical problems. And I'm also building other teams to approach medical problems. Because many of the problems, I don't know the technology, I don't have the technology, but I know a lot of people at Caltech, and so I can go find them, I know people outside. So we're having great fun building teams to approach and develop problems. But the key is we have to identify the right problems, which is the clinician, we have to do the science, and then we have to have the clinicians who are able and willing to take this new technology, take it into humans, and make it work. And without that part, without that piece, none of it works at all, and it'll never get into humans. And so Dr. Chayet has been key in making this all happen. So clinical problems and keep bringing up new science. I can't tell you the number of new things we've had to develop as this went along, based on this simple idea. We have to do the technology transfer. Now we can do it. Now we can get good vision. And so for us, we had to develop new science. We had to learn how to develop material remotely. This will have many, many applications outside the eye, and it's also a new way to control photochemistry. And so overall, it's been a really fun science project. Hopefully, it will be a project that will help people see better, and it's been a key project that demonstrates, I think, how one can put together teams of people with totally different backgrounds. And if they're all willing to work together, they can make a lot of progress toward what I hope is a useful end. And so I'd like to thank my collaborators, Dan Swartz, who's been phenomenal in this. We now have, I think, 6 or 7 other projects going, which I hope someday we can bring and are ready for the next stage. Xiao, Chris, were the 2 people. She's materials and he's optics at the company. Julie Cornfield is my colleague at Caltech, who was involved in the early days of developing it. And as I pointed out, Dr. Chayet has been a key person in testing it in humans and being able to identify problems, bringing them back to us, and in many cases helping make suggestions about what we can do to actually make this technology work. Thanks.
Agradecemos de nuevo cuenta a nuestros invitados especiales su participación. Vamos a pasar, tenemos muy poco tiempo, pero podemos hacer un par de preguntas. Y de hecho me acaban de pasar una por escrito que me imagino que iría para el doctor Chayet. ¿En qué lugar se encuentran México y específicamente Tijuana en el área de oftalmología y atención visual?
Pues, como lo poníamos en nuestra presentación, debido a nuevamente a esta situación que estamos muy cercanos del área donde se están desarrollando todas estas nuevas tecnologías, Tijuana en muchas cosas estamos en primer lugar a nivel mundial. O sea, hay muchas, por ejemplo, LASIK, muchas de las innovaciones que hicieron en LASIK se hicieron aquí en Tijuana y en otras partes de México. Entonces, realmente en México estamos a la vanguardia de todo lo que es atención para problemas de la vista.
Información que definitivamente se tiene que saber a lo largo y ancho del planeta. Tenemos otra pregunta de parte de nuestro público. Por aquí alguien está levantando la mano, por favor, nuestros asistentes.
Gracias, doctor Chayet. Buenas tardes. Felicidades por su presentación a ambos. La pregunta es en el sentido siguiente. La verdad es que tuve la oportunidad de ser operado por usted y con un ojo puedo ver de cerca, con el otro de lejos. La verdad estoy muy satisfecho con la operación. La pregunta es, hay una empresa que ofrece teóricamente la operación para poder ver de lejos y de cerca con ambos ojos. ¿Por qué la clínica de usted, tan reconocida, en principio no lleva a cabo ese tipo de operación? ¿Hay algún tipo de problema en un futuro? ¿Cuál es la diferencia o por qué hay esta restricción en ese sentido?
No, bueno, no, en realidad no hay ninguna restricción y la verdad es que debido a que hay esta controversia y es algo más comercial que científico y la razón de estar aquí es más científica que comercial, no me quiero meter mucho en eso, pero lo que puedo decirles a ustedes es de que básicamente lo que esa empresa está anunciando es un procedimiento que hacen con un láser en específico, pero eso no quiere decir que los demás no lo tengamos a la disposición. De hecho, nosotros lo tenemos. Hay ciertas situaciones negativas a veces de hacer tratamientos con láser multifocales, que es lo que están ellos sugiriendo, haciendo. De hecho, la empresa que fabrica ese láser en Estados Unidos, la FDA no los ha aprobado, por decirlo así. Y bueno, tenemos muchas otras formas de resolver ese problema y uno de esos, por ejemplo, es con el lente ajustable con la luz, en donde, como decía el profesor Groves, lo que hacemos es ajustamos primero los lentes para ver de lejos. Ya que la persona ve perfectamente bien de lejos, hacemos un tratamiento para agregarle el poder para que la persona pueda ver de cerca con cada ojo y puedan ver bien de lejos y puedan ver bien de cerca. Esa es la forma más exacta y correcta de resolver el problema de la presbicia. Con el láser el problema está de que, número uno, hay mucha